It began with a splash, loud, sharp, and final. Too big to be a fish, too sudden to be ignored. Then came the scream, "There's a woman in the water, she's gone." The gator pulled her under, crackled a panicked voice through the 911. Sirens followed, slicing through the calm Florida morning, as emergency teams raced to the scene. At the pond's edge, only silence remained. The water rippled gently now, like it hadn't just swallowed a life whole. A single beige shoe lay abandoned on the grass. A leash, slack and twisted, led nowhere. Cynthia Diekema had vanished. Just minutes earlier, she'd been walking her little dog Lucky, the way she did every morning, slow, steady steps along the pond trail. "Come on now, Lucky," she had chuckled, watching the tiny dog scurry ahead. Birdsong filled the air. The day felt normal, peaceful, but Lucky had stopped suddenly. He darted toward the water, barking. And that's when it happened. Eyewitnesses later recalled flashes, shadows, splashes, chaos. "I saw something rise from the water," said one neighbor. "Big, like a log at first, then it moved." There was a sharp yelp from Lucky, then Cynthia's cry, "No, Lucky, come back." But the gator wasn't after the dog. It lunged with terrifying speed, jaws wide. 11 feet of prehistoric power snapped around Cynthia. Witnesses screamed, frozen by shock and horror. "She tried to pull back," said another witness, her voice trembling. "But it was too fast, she was just gone." Less than a minute. That's all it took. The splash, the struggle, the silence. By the time first responders arrived, there was no trace of Cynthia in the water. Just Lucky, shivering, wet and alone by the shore. He barked once, then sat down, staring at the pond. The officers scanned the surface, faces pale. "We need a dive team, now." Cynthia Diekema, 85 years old, retired schoolteacher, bird lover, had walked this trail for years. She fed the ducks, she knew the wildlife. But she hadn't seen this coming. The sun climbed higher, glinting off the water. Still, quiet, deceptive. It wasn't the first attack in Florida's wild wetlands. But for the people who knew Cynthia, this wasn't just another headline. This was personal. "Good morning, Lucky," Cynthia whispered, clipping on his leash just as the sky turned pale blue. The old dog wagged his tail, ready for their daily walk. Every morning was the same. A gentle breeze, the rustle of palm leaves, the soft patter of Cynthia's footsteps on the trail behind her condo. It was peaceful, almost sacred. Neighbors often waved from their porch. "There she goes again," one chuckled. Rain or shine, Cynthia Diekema was 85, but her spirit still danced. She was a widow, a retired teacher, and the kind of neighbor who remembered birthdays and brought cookies on holidays. She had a kindness in her voice, a resident recalled, like sunshine wrapped in a cardigan. Each morning, Cynthia carried a small bag of breadcrumbs in one pocket, and occasionally, leftover fish scraps in another. The birds knew her, the turtles did too. She'd laugh softly whenever they gathered. "There you go," she'd say, tossing crumbs to the ducks. Sometimes, the pond would ripple unexpectedly. A swirl here, a splash there. Cynthia would pause and smile. "Just a curious fish," she'd murmur. But months before the tragedy, something began to change. Cynthia once told a neighbor, "I saw a big one today, just floating near the reeds. Beautiful creature." That big one wasn't a fish. It wasn't beautiful. It was a fully grown alligator. 11 feet long, ancient, silent, watching. Cynthia had read about gators before, but in her mind, they belonged to swamps and documentaries, not this tiny pond, nestled between picket fences and flower beds. "They leave you alone if you leave them alone," she once said. But that isn't always true. In warmer months, gators grow bold, hungry. Their instincts sharpen. Movement, especially from small animals, can trigger something primal. Lucky, her little rescue dog, was barely 10 pounds. His playful barks, his excited dashes, near the water's edge, they weren't just cute. They were signals to something lurking below, something that had been watching for weeks. Cynthia had no reason to fear. The water was always calm, too calm. She never saw the danger, not because she wasn't paying attention, but because she believed the world was still as gentle as she was. The splash was silent at first, just a ripple beneath the cattails. The gator had been watching, for days, maybe longer, still as stone, hidden in the algae, eyes barely above water. He knew the routine, the old woman, the little dog, the crumbs, the laughter. To Cynthia it was just nature. To the alligator it was a pattern, a signal, a trigger. Neighbors had noticed. "There's something in that pond," one man warned, pointing from his patio. "It's huge." He even filmed it once circling a duck that landed too close. The duck vanished in seconds. Another day, someone claimed the gator lunged at a squirrel near the rocks. The HOA was told, but no one acted. No signs, no traps, just silence. Experts would later explain, when gators stop fearing people, that's when it gets dangerous, and this one had stopped fearing. Because food had come too easily. Tossed breadcrumbs, dropped fish scraps. The innocent kindness of someone like Cynthia. "She meant well," said a wildlife officer. But that's how it starts. They associate humans with food, and then instinct takes over. That morning, Cynthia followed her usual trail. Lucky tugged on his leash, ears perked. Something had caught his attention. A movement in the reeds, a ripple, a shadow. "Easy, Lucky," Cynthia chuckled, pulling gently. But Lucky barked excited, high-pitched. He darted toward the edge, paws splashing, and that was enough. The gator exploded from the water. "I saw the head rise, then it lunged," said an eyewitness. "It was like a car crash, sudden, violent." Cynthia screamed, yanked the leash, tried to pull Lucky back. But the gator didn't want the dog, it went for her. Its jaws clamped down, hard, fast. One pull, and she was gone, dragged under the surface. It lasted seconds, the ripples faded, the pond returned to stillness. Lucky stood at the edge, wet and shaking. His leash snapped. He let out one last bark, quiet, then sat down, staring at the water. The predator had waited, and when instinct struck, there was no warning. No second chance. She didn't even have time to scream again. The gator clamped down with crushing force, nearly 2,000 pounds of pressure. Cynthia's torso disappeared between its jaws as her cane flew from her hand and hit the grass with a soft thud. Lucky barked wildly, pacing at the edge, his leash dragging behind him. Then came the spin, the death roll. Water churned violently as the predator twisted and dragged her deeper, faster, designed to disorient, to drown, and then stillness. The pond went quiet, the ripples faded. Lucky stood frozen, staring into the water, where she had just. "She's gone," whispered a man nearby, his voice shaking. Emergency responders arrived within minutes. Divers suited up, boats combed the edges. But hours passed, no sign, no movement, no Cynthia. Finally, just before dusk, the team spotted it, a dark shape near the reeds. "We've got it," one officer called out, body still in the jaws. The gator had not let go. Wildlife officers made a swift decision. It had to be euthanized. One clean shot, no struggle. When they pulled Cynthia's body from the water, the crowd watching from the sidewalk fell silent. "She was the kindest soul I knew," said one neighbor, through tears. "This shouldn't have happened." Someone laid flowers at the water's edge, yellow daisies, Cynthia's favorite. Others just stared, their eyes full of questions. That pond, once peaceful, now looked like a trap. "We should have done something," a woman whispered. "We all saw it out there, we just assumed." Florida wildlife officials stepped forward. Their message was direct: never feed wildlife, never let pets near open water. And in Florida, always assume a gator is nearby. The community built a small bench where Cynthia used to stand. They posted warning signs, they changed their routines. But for Lucky, change didn't come so easy. Every morning he walks to the same corner, sits down, stares at the water, waiting for a leash tug that won't come, waiting for a voice that's now only memory. Because Cynthia wasn't just another victim, she was a reminder that nature, though beautiful, is never tamed. We share this world with wild things. Not all of them forgive our kindness. Some demand our caution, others are and sometimes, that's the only line between life and loss. If Cynthia's story moved you, share this video, so others never make the same mistake.